TikTok.
Hello Stick Nation, I'm calling from Uppsala in Sweden and I want to show this amazing stick that I found.
I wouldn't wanna be anybody else. Na 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 na.
I'm in the ghetto. Ratatata. Ratatata. Ah!
The land of the free and the home of the memes.
Y'all already know who I am. My name's Topher, and I think Olivia.
Ladies and gentlemen, the volume inside of this bus is astronomical.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't speak Spanish. Yeah.
Communism's most horrifying weapon.
Hi, I'm Bunny.
I'm not sure how to say this. Julius Caesar is dead.
Hey, I'm Z. What's up?
I don't know how to build a dam. Pussy.
Hi, I'm Oliver.
The secret tool, carefully crafted by the Chinese Communist Party to dominate the Western civilization, is shutting down in the United States of America. Unless, of course, the God-chosen warrior of light, Donald J. Trump, and his only son, according to him, Barron, will save it, as a first gesture of goodwill from the newly elected imperial family to the plebs. What season of Dragon Ball is that?
Hi, Helga here. Here I am. It's vine time. Guess where I am? I'm at the lake. Look, they're my friends.
I love TikTok. It's fun. That's the platform that gave me my brain rot, has significantly decreased my attention span, and that's where I believe all 99% of the entire 100 of you who are gonna watch this video are coming from, because that was my original platform and that's where I got my initial rise as an internet talking head. The remaining 1% is my dad. Hi Dad. I remember Musical.ly turning into TikTok like it was yesterday. I remember getting insane number of ads for it back in 2018. This is when I was working in Tokyo as an English teacher, and I was watching a lot of YouTube, and all of these ads for this new cool and hip app called TikTok were popping up, and it was mostly cute Japanese girls dancing, so I thought to myself, tempting, but no. And I didn't install TikTok back then. However, I do remember TikTok almost immediately becoming the topic of all of these dozens of YouTube TikTok cringe video compilations. It was cool and trendy to make fun of TikTok for a while. It was seen as silly, it was seen as secondary, kind of unimportant and not particularly credible. So there was nothing giving away the fact that we were witnessing one of the most important things in the recent internet history slowly emerging out of obscurity and into the spotlight. Even the vertical video format itself was kind of questionable. Many people thought that it was not serious, that it couldn't potentially work. Were you able of predicting back in 2018 that the vertical videos were about to change the landscape of social media? No, you weren't. Or you're lying. Or maybe you're one of the people behind TikTok, then I'm calling the US government on you and they're gonna ban you too. TikTok back then was extremely unserious. The biggest debates, the discourse that was happening on TikTok at the time was the gender identity of that one cosplayer dancing to hit or miss, I guess they never miss, huh? Like, that was the level we were at collectively. So no, there were no signs that we were getting recruited by the most subtle Chinese espionage campaign in history. It was just your regular brain rot. TikTok lacked both credibility and also, and perhaps most importantly, a vast enough customer base. So unless something groundbreaking happened that would have changed the attitude of people towards the social media and would allow for millions of people to spend significantly more time on the internet and start exploring all of these new and different apps as potential means of communication with each other. Unless that happened, no way in hell would TikTok become such a sensation as it did. So I don't even know what we're talking about. It's not like 2019, 2020 saw some life-shifting events for most of the world, the consequences of which we're still living through today.
Guess what, bitch? Coronavirus! Coronavirus!
The COVID pandemic and the lockdowns was the beginning of TikTok's rise. This is when most of the people downloaded it, including me. I got TikTok in 2020 and it was a lot of fun. Sue me, the US government, or not. Maybe don't. I don't have anything to give you. Only this. It's supposed to be about baby. The most important thing, however, was that not only were all of these people getting the TikTok app, they were posting on it, which is, wow, I know, stating the obvious, so clever, 10 YouTube essays out of 10. But wait a second, what if I take you all the way back to the land of pre-pandemic and try and make you think about what posting videos on the internet felt like back then? You would tell me, I'm confused and I have lost the track of your thought because I have an attention span of a goldfish and you sound like a Slavic language speaker trying to communicate in English, and you will be right. But the simple truth is that posting videos of yourself talking on the internet before TikTok, specifically pre-pandemic TikTok, was not normalized at all. Things that were happening at the time were more niche, like Vine, that were all about these short 6-second comedy skits and not much else. Instagram, which was seen for personal use, videos of your friends doing drugs at the club, beautiful sunsets, doing drugs at the beautiful sunset, you know, stuff like that. And of course, then there was also YouTube, but YouTube was seen as something more elaborate, something for which you need basic editing skills and understanding of all of the software, which is either too complicated or just something that the majority of people don't have the time for. You wouldn't simply just pick up your camera and then talk into it and then upload it onto YouTube. There was still a process in between that was scaring off a lot of potential YouTubers. Can you imagine how many potential YouTubers we have lost to Sony Vegas? Picking up your phone, talking into it, and then uploading your video onto the platform became TikTok's whole thing. It was the shtick. It was something that they marketed the hell out of. The TikTok app in itself had the most basic, primitive, easy to use editing tools most people would ever see. It didn't require any special techniques. It didn't require any extra time spent on learning how to use it. So it literally took the middleman out of the equation. No, you don't have to go to this third space in order to edit, except for that one brief period where they normalized CapCut, but that was already after TikTok blew up. You can just upload, edit, and then post. Another thing was how good the TikTok filters were. So not only could you post easily and a lot, you could also look way prettier than you do in real life while doing that, which is 100% different to how things work on YouTube. Again, unless you know how to use the editing software and you apply all of these smoothing and pretty fine filters on yourself, you're gonna look significantly worse than you do in real life for your YouTube videos, or at least I do, so I hope. TikTok eliminated this. No matter the age, gender, beauty standard, you would look significantly prettier posting on TikTok than you would on any other platform. That's still the case to this day.
Gen X rise.
And props to TikTok for that. If it wasn't for their filter, I know I would have never posted anything on the internet ever. And of course there was also the fact that TikTok normalized the so-called trends, which were, to put it non-politically correct, just stealing other people's ideas and then posting it and getting a ton of views because algorithm would boost these trends. It was kind of similar on YouTube, just not as egregious, and TikTok definitely made a lot to normalize it. Like, it still has the videos of people lip-syncing to other people's storytelling. It's like if I sat down and went like
I'm just like, oh my god, time and place, and you did it at my birthday dinner.
Long before everyone else, the first ones to realize the insane power of TikTok were the brands. But not all the brands, some of the brands, because brands tend to differ from each other, in case you didn't know. Some of them have smart people behind them and some of them have whatever that is. But also, it didn't take a genius to notice that one viral TikTok video had a potential to sell out your entire product. What made for this perfect advertising on early TikTok was the authenticity. The authenticity of people just picking up their phones and talking into the camera from their bedrooms made for such an incredible marketing. I found many people comparing these ads of these influencers on TikTok doing their makeup or talking about some other products to having a FaceTime conversation with their friend. This is an incredible level of authenticity that even the beauty guru YouTube at its peak couldn't achieve. We're talking early Zoella levels of authenticity to those of you fluent in sacred ancient texts. So the mix of fake authenticity and the insane TikTok algorithm boosting some of those videos to the heights that were previously unknown in the online world, hundreds of thousands, even millions of unique views, kind of proven to be this insane force of nature and showed that it was simply a matter of time before people start using it for other things, maybe more real issues, maybe not just consumerism related issues, but perhaps real life issues, maybe politics. For a while, however, what TikTok lacked most in influencing politics or spreading the news was credibility. It was still largely seen as a joke of an app, good for selling things, good for memes, dancing, lip syncing, sharing weird life stories, but not much else. The shift in approach started to happen in the late 2021, 2022, and this is where my story begins. Late 2021 found me with a platform of 30,000 people, of which I was insanely proud of, but which is not a very impressive result for TikTok at all. I was mostly talking about media because this is what I always wanted to do. My lifelong dream and aspiration was being an annoying YouTube commentator person. And also I was talking about the time I spent teaching in Japan. So it was all quite innocent. And then it changed overnight. In the light of later turned out to be the Russian full-scale invasion of my country, Ukraine, where I was living at the time and still am, I decided to completely change the angle and try and use TikTok to spread the information about the situation in my country. As someone who has already lived through the Russian invasion and occupation in 2014, I understood what it potentially meant. And although I was one of the people who didn't believe that Russia would invade Ukraine fully in the way that it did, I was convinced that it could invade some of our regions in the east. Because judging from my previous experience, I knew that they could easily do it, and this is something that the world community would swallow without even trying to punish them at all, because this is exactly what happened to us before. So I started making TikToks about the situation in Ukraine. My first viral TikTok, however, was not centered around Ukraine at all. It was centered around the insane news coverage of the potential Ukraine invasion coming from the Western media. I saw tons of TikToks of American teenagers pretending that they were about to go fight the Russians in Ukraine, and that kind of added to my annoyance, because you have to understand that the situation that we were living in at the moment, people like myself who were fluent in English, Ukrainian, living in Ukraine, potentially about to be invaded, and having to follow the foreign news cycle, who are not only constantly talking about how we're about to get invaded, but also changing the date of the upcoming invasion, and also kind of showcasing that their governments were not going to do anything to stop it, that they were just there to sort of witness and sit back and relax and enjoy the show. So my first ever video on the topic was born out of the frustration with that. And that video went viral because it had the potential for virality. It had this controversial tone. It sounded almost as if I was attacking Americans, and to be fair, I was attacking some of them, the stupid teenagers in their bedrooms, for instance. I still remember some of the comments from very angry Republican moms telling me that my son isn't going to die for your country. That was the first time I ever received one of those. In the upcoming years, those would multiply. I remember seeing these comments and thinking, Don't these people understand that we're not even in the NATO? No, Kyle will not have to go and die for us, Rebecca. It's not gonna happen. This, combined with so many people asking me, hey, why wouldn't you share the real situation with us instead of laughing at us? Kind of pushed me towards making videos about Ukraine. The first video I ever made was just sort of explaining how things here were, our anxieties and how we were scared, and also what I thought was one of the most important things to understand at the time was that we were already invaded by Russia in 2014 and that we were in the state of ongoing war for years, and that no one really paid attention. But just because you were not paying attention didn't mean that it wasn't happening, and also that we were not going to give up. And that was something that many people were very skeptical about. They were telling me that our forces would get destroyed in a couple of days. I realized very fast that it was very important for me to explain to people that we're not going to run away, and that we have a functioning army that can fight, but will require the material support because we are broke as hell. And that was kind of the main sentiment that I was trying to convey in my videos and in my live streams. So that was my experience with using TikTok for trying to shed the light on the very real, very complicated geopolitical situation. And it worked. The TikTok algorithm first took me from 30,000 subscribers to 60,000 subscribers. I remember celebrating it like it was my birthday or something. It was still before the full-scale invasion had begun, so I was very happy. I was talking about something I was passionate about, which was my country, and people liked it, and people were subscribing, and they were interested, and they were listening. So yeah, definitely one of the heights of my internet career. This was also the moment when TikTok started to receive all of this media attention, with all of these big brands and big media outlets arriving on the platform, with major celebrities and politicians starting their official TikTok accounts. I started getting mainstream media attention from my videos even prior to the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, but after February 24th, 2022, it just blew up. This was also the first time when the conversation began in the mainstream media about the validity of the TikTok bloggers such as myself covering the situation, whether or not we can be trusted, and of course the importance of TikTok itself when covering such major events. At the time, I didn't really care about that conversation at all. I was trying to help my country by posting on TikTok. I know how it sounds, okay? But we did manage to help. The TikTok authenticity, I guess, came through, and I managed to gather a group of really cool people who actually really wanted to help and really trusted me to be their sort of guiding light into the confusing world of, well, Ukrainian reality. And we were doing fundraisers. I was also trying to navigate people towards the trustworthy sources to donate to if they wanted to help. Also trying to fight against some of the most persuasive Russian propaganda tropes about Ukraine, and just to talk to people. Because I still believe that it's extremely important to talk to each other and listen to what the other has to say. I know, innovative thinking. But if you spend even a couple seconds reflecting on this, you will understand that most of the times we allow our conversations to be done for us by the politicians and the mainstream media, who not always have our best interests in mind. So there were several factors in my virality. It was the fact that it was the hottest topic, the fact that I was one of the first people to have started to cover Ukraine even before the full scale, the fact that I can speak English, and there were other factors as well, but one of the most important ones was the very nature of the TikTok algorithm. TikTok algorithm, already known for allowing creators to come from nothing and achieve these massive platforms almost overnight, proved to be irreplaceable for someone like myself in that situation. Even before the big war, I knew that the TikTok was the place for me to be, because there was no other app on which you could grow such a following in such short period of time. TikTok algorithm did allow for the most tremendous, fast and unstoppable growth for so many different creators across the platform. Thanks to the sheer scale and size of TikTok, it ended up in so many different communities and creators rising up and reaching these unspeakable heights. Of course, a huge chunk of the TikTok magic was the fact that it was gathering a lot of your data. Because there was no other way in hell it could create such a perfectly fitted for you page that would be so fully in tune and adjusted with your interests and most niche tastes and even vibes. So yeah, there was definitely some data harvesting happening there, but we were more than willing to pay the price, you know. Looks like it was taken by some that the true potential and the real danger of TikTok was not the fact that the furries were having a blast on there, or that socialists were standing Bin Laden, or that Luigi the CEO killer Mangione got his own fandom for looking like literally every Southern Italian man you will ever meet. It was that reach that TikTok allowed for sometimes even the most insignificant topics to have. It has proven to be extremely good at delivering information to a lot of people, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, really fast. And it has also proven to show this information to the people who will be very likely to care. And so when it came to things of real life significance, chances were you would actually stumble upon an opportunity to make the real change in the world. Which sounds like it's a good thing, right? But not for everyone, I guess. In case of the news and information on real-time events, TikTok's own brand of authenticity has proven to work incredibly well. One of the reasons why so many people were turning to people like me, a literal nobody, on the internet was because we were explaining things honestly, simply, and in easy to digest form, which is important. No one likes to be talked down to. This is how the phenomenon of some random person sitting in their pajamas in their bedroom being taken as significantly more trustworthy than all of these suit-wearing on the TV types of individuals was born. Yes, presenting the news from the point of your own lived experience gives you bias. You will always be inclined to attach your opinion and your feelings and your emotions to something that it is believed by many should be presented as these stone-cold facts and nothing more, but this is not what people respond to. Very often, more often than not, people want to hear the emotional bias part as well. They want to be let in on this information. And sometimes it can be helpful when they're making up their mind about certain issues. Paradoxically, and there are many paradoxes when it comes to TikTok, but its worst suit was also its best one, that it could deliver a lot of information to a lot of people fast. And that tends to mean zero to no fact-checking, and also very little censorship, aside from of course, the infamous TikTok newspeak, such as grapist instead of rapist. Having all of this very emotional information, people pleading and crying, terrible things happening live on your feed, spreading very, very fast to the people who could potentially care a lot, was a perfect breeding ground for scammers. And the fundraisers for various causes have flourished. The cancer surgeries, the vet bills, evacuation from the war-torn areas. In our case, we were fundraising for the used pickup trucks, which might sound silly until I tell you that this is still one of the main evacuation methods in our army to this very day. You can imagine how these things increase the risk of audience manipulation. While I was doing my thing back in 2022, there were tons of people pretending to be Ukrainian, pretending to be in Ukraine, pretending to be me being Ukrainian in Ukraine. We even got the legacy media talking. Surprise, surprise. The Guardian did an entire article on the problem and used me as a face of it. My favorite part of it was that for their article they used a very specific video of me advertising literally the most trustworthy foundation in Ukraine that almost every Ukrainian, well at least any Ukrainian who has ever heard of that foundation will recommend to you. It's called Come Back Alive, and they have been working tirelessly since 2014. But yeah, that became the face of the article talking about the grifters and the scammers. Thanks, The Guardian. But in all fairness, I'm not mad. I might sound like I am, but no, I'm not mad. It was a good thing. We need more of that. We really, really needed more fact-checking. And with TikTok, just like pretty much any other social media platform, failing to impose those regulations, someone had to pick up the torch. Wouldn't it be nice if the mainstream media fact-checked things before they printed them, just because they saw things on TikTok? I know, what a wonderful world that would be. We all understand that the TikTok case is not unique when it comes to spreading misinformation though, right? Even Joe Biden talked about it in his recent speech, and the fact that Joe Biden knows what social media is still feels unnatural to me, but here we are. Even the guy who grew up scribbling on papyrus or something is aware of the issue. You can imagine the scale. Massive social media giants, be it TikTok, Twitter, or its current abominable form, everything owned by Meta, and the rest of them have shown deliberate, repeated disregard for any type of content moderation on their platforms. It makes sense considering that we're talking about extremely evil businesses that are only interested in few things, such as making profit, world domination, and training their AI models for profit and world domination. Their most successful model in question being Mark Zuckerberg. The closest robots have gotten to being good at surfing. So if the social media platforms aren't planning on keeping themselves at bay, in fact, the most recent development with the Zuck, and no, not the fact that he now looks like a prompt for what if divorce was a human being, but rather him embracing Elon concerning Musk's attitude towards censorship on his platforms. And Musk's approach to Twitter in particular, the one that I like to call what if everyone's favorite news and entertainment platform has turned into the SS headquarters overnight, and dropping the already existing and clearly insufficient moderation on Meta in order to fight the woke, I guess, which is simply bound to increase the spread of misinformation if Twitter has taught us anything. So these platforms are not going to do self-censoring. They're showing that they're not willing to do that. It doesn't make sense for them. The government fails to do this, and they're showing that it's easier to ban instead of implementing regulations, which is silly. It's like cutting off the Hydra's head. And yes, there are 2 more heads growing, but at the same time you're also surrounded by 100 other Hydra heads, all screeching at you at once. We should drop the polio vaccine. Huh, Holocaust denial. Interesting. Let me amplify that. Feed your child this raw squirrel immediately. You have to save America by remembering who your real enemy is. Not the Kremlin, the Californians. You might think it's Putin, but no. It's Jonathan Cheban. Kill him. I wish we had another regulator of sorts, something that could serve as a sort of firewall between the real world and the social media brewing insanity. Some sort of institution, like a fifth branch of power, like someone who's supposed to keep in check the authority figures, and someone that has to do the fact checking, and someone that has to write about those things in their little scribbly thingies, like the papyrus ones from the Trump-Biden childhood. The big media. What's the big media doing? Big media is stealing TikToks and writing articles about them. There used to be a very clear cringe ridge between the social media and the real life, and the social media internet cringe would barely spill into the real world. It would be an occasional talented kid on Ellen, or an article about how a yelling YouTuber is making millions of dollars and it makes the journalists writing the article sad. Maybe an occasional bigoted lady claiming that everyone in Africa has Ebola, receiving some karma and getting fired for her statements, but nothing more than that. I would argue in this essay that the people who broke the watershed willingly were the legacy media types in the first place. It was the people who were supposed to protect us from the madness. They were the chosen ones. Do I have any references that are not painfully millennial coded? Bakugo Katsuki is not a monster. I don't know when it happened. I'm guessing sometime after 2020. I don't really know how it happened either. But we have somehow entered the area of, hey, look at this TikTok being counted as a journalistic article. And I don't like it. It makes me really sad. This has also taken the problem to an entirely different realm. All of these little takes and opinions and conversations happening on the internet where they're supposed to stay 9 out of 10 times were turned into the discourse. And were brought into the real world and given the power to influence the events in the real world, and I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this. I really like the internet, screaming, yelling, crying, and throwing up. I like the fandom wars, huge fan, major participant, but it should always remain in its own online realm where the mutual delusion and collective psychosis are celebrated and not treated professionally as they should be in the real world. So going for a low-hanging fruit of someone's TikToks as a journalistic material was kind of silly and ultimately counterproductive because it has decreased the already dropping trust in the big legacy media. I mean, why would I read your article quoting someone else's TikToks if I can just go and watch someone else's TikToks? Wait, unless they ban it? No. In my case, I had a ton of Western journalists reaching out after the beginning of the Russian war against Ukraine, and my TikTok's going viral. Some of them, I'm gonna give the credit where the credit is due, were very good, very professional, very sensible, very sensitive, and also, which is a great gift, not only in a journalist, but in any human being, very tactful. They would ask for my ID to prove that I am actually Ukrainian. They would do some background check on me. And if it sounds like the bare minimum to you, let me introduce you to the fact that there was a ton of journalists who reached out to me and didn't ask for any proof of credibility or authenticity whatsoever. See, I used to be under the impression that when I am reading a fancy liberal magazine for educated people with good hair, and there's an article on rich lesbian lady who started a wolf sanctuary in Massachusetts, I could be sure that the fancy magazine did their research and could at least prove that the lesbian lady was the real lady. Apparently not all the time, no. Apparently these days they can just write whatever the hell they want and then say, oh, we saw it on TikTok. Or use the word allegedly a lot and then face no responsibility or consequences. Cool. I hate it so much. Thanks for that. Imagine you think you're talking to the Hollywood star Brad Pitt, who is undergoing a kidney surgery, and you send them $830,000 and they're not real, and it's all Washington Post's fault. I didn't do even 1% of the interviews I was offered. I am terrible at being a viral social media sensation, and thank God I'm not that anymore. I would do amazingly on Ellen in like 2013, you know. I don't know what my talent would be, reciting all of the Naruto openings in chronological order, I guess, but I would kill it. And then Ellen would kill me. And then she would make a stand-up special. Do I think that this is a coincidence that all of these big media types failing to do the most basic fact-checking happens at the same time with them also fail to fact-check all of these powerful and influential figures claiming nonsense in their public speeches and interviews? No, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a symptom of a massive problem that we're having at hand. Not only you guys in the Western countries, but everywhere globally, everywhere where we believe democracy should exist. I'm very close to remembering the name of the person that this happened to. An example where running a sensational piece with a clickbaity article title as soon as humanly possible was much more important than fact-checking and challenging that person on the things he's saying. Like, I feel like this happened, right? I feel like there were even many such cases, no? No, maybe it's just me. What do I know? English is not even my first language.
Peace on the world.
The god-awful idea that there are several realities that we're living in, that the reality is subjective, that the facts don't matter and law is flexible. It's not just delusional, it's dangerous. And I'm afraid we have already fallen for it. You can ban all TikToks on the planet, and it's not going to change the fact that you're simply tackling the symptom and not the root issue. You have millions of people falling into this trap, going from misinformation to anger, from anger to resentment, and from resentment to radicalization, and in the meantime you have people in the background battling TikTok. So yeah, let them fight against the windmills, I guess. Because ultimately this is what it is. Trying to ban the app, actually banning the app, Trump pardoning the app, but all of this means very little when you understand that the issue that we have at hand is much more terrifying than just one silly app serving the Communist Party of China. As someone who has a very surface level of understanding when it comes to the United States, yes, surprise, surprise, if you have watched this far, you have just watched an entire video of a person who hasn't even been to the United States. Now you know what it feels like to watch the Ukraine analysis from the Americans. So as someone like myself, who has never been to the US, only has like a couple of US friends, I do know a lot of surprising US trivia. I know what Roth IRA is. I've learned it from an SNL sketch with Bill Hader years ago. I don't doesn't really find the outrage and this pettiness of the people switching to all of these Chinese apps, clearly out of spite, lashing out at the government, at all surprising. I think it's kind of a justified reaction from the freedom-loving people thinking that their rights are being infringed upon. Is this crazy? Is this radical? Now let me tell you something. If my government told me, if Zelensky came to me and told me that I can no longer log on to the app that has all of my favorite Bill Skarsgård edits on it...
Don't call women. Don't call women. Did your mother ever tell you that?
I wouldn't riot, but I would install the VPN in the next 3 seconds, so I really get the sentiment. The underlying hypocrisy of it all, man, it's just insane to me. Are you honestly telling the people that TikTok is bad for your brain and is killing democracy, but the Musk-owned Twitter isn't? The Musk-owned Twitter, in its current state, X.com, place where Hitler Youth meets the Flat Earther headquarters, place where everyone has to pretend that Musk is a professional gamer or else. Really. TikTok is destroying your and your kids' intellect and attention span, but Facebook, with its endless barrage of the most insane AI slop you will ever see, isn't? Your Mima is praying to Lobster Jesus, wake up! Do you see what the problem here is? It's all of them, and I feel like we all understand it. It doesn't matter if TikTok goes or stays, it doesn't matter if Facebook goes or stays, just nothing matters. If the environment surrounding it doesn't change, it's all gonna repeat itself. Oh, minus, of course, the horrifying Communist Party, because thank God the Communist Party of China has no other way of influencing people's opinions except for TikTok. Thank God they don't have official Twitter accounts. Thank God they don't have YouTube channels. Thank God they're not buying your bloggers. Well, at least the ones that Russians haven't bought yet. Phew, that's a relief. But the TikTok is gone now, so we're safe. Everyone's safe from C. Yeah, everyone's safe. Everyone is safe except for Mima. Yeah, she's gone. She's gone. She believes they saw Jesus in Ohio and he was a crustacean, so yeah, she's a goner. And what about my particular case? Well, in my particular case, TikTok unfortunately stopped being a good enough vessel for my cause quite a while ago. These days, I don't know what they did. Was it the fact that the Ukraine topic is no longer popular and generally causes, in the most optimistic cases, the reaction of can it please just go away from people? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact, if we get a little bit tinfoil hatty on this, I'm gonna be honest with you, it did feel slightly as if someone did kind of messed with the algorithm a little bit, because these days even putting the word Ukraine in your TikTok hashtags is just the most effective way to tank your video from the get-go. Like, it's not gonna do well at all, unless you're being very controversial on purpose, unless you're trying to offend a bunch of people in it, which I don't recommend you do. Why would you do that? No one likes us anymore as it is, so just please stop. The entire information war thing, and I came to hate this expression because it kind of sounds disrespectful to me, to the defenders who are currently fighting the real war against the aggressor, but the entire information war thing was only relevant in 2022. By this point in time, it's 2025, in case you didn't know, yeah, let me be the first person to tell you, it's irrelevant. All the people who mattered have already made up their mind. I feel like we have already made the most impact that we could, at least when it comes to social media stuff. So yeah, but just because the app is no longer useful to my cause, doesn't mean that it should get banned. Is it such a hard concept for some of the politicians to understand? I guess we'll never know. So yeah, TikTok, if you're watching me on YouTube, I hope you know that I really hope you don't get banned. If you do, however, then it means you will also get banned here probably, so farewell in advance. But also, I will just download a VPN and I'll continue using it, because what do you mean, my edits?